Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm back. I am so glad to say I am back with my main man, Gareth, for talking tactics. We're not talking about a victory, though, unfortunately, but we have got some wicked, amazing analysis for you. So make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get your comments in, your thoughts on Nottingham Forest 2, Aston Villa 1. And I said it last night on our match reactions show, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Gareth, great to have you back, mate. How you doing? Sadly, we're not talking about a Villa victory on Talking Tactics.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Getting there, thank you. Yeah, I mean, 3 losses now after 3 Champions League games, all away from home, as we said on our group last night. And I think that's quite significant. You know, it seems to be that we are getting a Champions League hangover, aren't we? There is a trend sort of there. In my game, you look at trends and you try and find out what's going on. And it's really difficult to pinpoint what is going on, but yeah, we should have seen the game out. Even if you, a 1-1, you expect a bit of pressure, but see the game out.
Yeah, and I'm really loath to kind of simplify the excuse or reasons down to Champions League hangover, but from being at the game, whether it and maybe looking at the previous matches where we have lost, maybe it gets to that end final sort of 5-10 minutes and that decision making, whether it's tension, whether it's fatigue, whether it's pressure, it just seems to affect certain players and decision makings, making long passes when a short pass is on, making a short pass when a clearance would have been necessary. It just seems like it's those little errors that are creeping in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is a mixture of both. I mean, I've looked at a lot of data over the past few weeks, post Champions League games and everything else, and nothing is really standing out that is dissimilar from where we sort of should be or where we are performing. I think, in my opinion, it has got a lot to do with fatigue. I think for the last, like you say, sort of 15, 20 minutes in games, we are lacking that little bit of focus, that little bit of intensity. And I think we should remember that they're all away from home. They've been tough games, and Forest are where they are for a reason. They're playing well. I just think we need to be that little bit more resolute. But I can't see any differences in data wise and anything else to say that anything else is going awry. We've got Boubacar Kamara back, all right, you could argue about Morgan Rogers and stuff like that, but it's just not right for me. It just looks like a fatigue issue for me.
Well, let's get into it because we've got, once again, your wonderful visuals to have a look at. First of all, we'll look at the tail of the tape. Anything that stood out to you here in terms of the stats?
No, I mean, I think the possession was fairly equal. Look at the passes, the accurate passes there. Spot on for everything. The long balls are very similar. We could argue that the goal kick length, we like to build up from the back, whereas they don't particularly. So, I mean, that maybe stands out. But every other stat is very, very similar, isn't it? The passing, the defensive pressure is very similar. I just think I think it tells you the game that there was not a favourite really in the game until sort of momentum started to swing later in the second half.
Yeah, it was a very tight game, and just swung on one or two little key moments, and that was that. Like you say, that doesn't really give us any major difference between the two sides, which would have told in the game because, quite frankly, for 65, 70 minutes, not a lot happened, so it was like that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it was. And, once you take the lead away from home, you can see the buoyancy in the players and the manager and the fans, even the away fans. So you could feel it that was sort of, that was expected almost, that John Duran was going to give us the lead. And we just have to be a little bit better at managing the games again. But like I say, it's the post-Champions League and all those 3 games have been away from home. So to have a league game at home after a Champions League game, maybe just might swing a little bit of momentum in our way.
Yeah. Passing networks are tried and trusted. Again, anything that you noticed here in terms of where the passes were, what kind of combinations we're using, average positions?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say thanks to my mate Gary, who's helped me out taking the substitution passes out and everything else. I struggled a little bit with that, so big thanks to him. But yeah, I just think it's sort of, you're looking at sort of, we're building up again from our favoured left-hand side. You could say Kamara being used a lot more basically in a lot of these passing networks I've done recently. But you could argue that Forest have done pretty much the same on their left-hand side. So you're kind of swinging from one side to the other, both in possession and out of possession. And it was kind of one of them things, wasn't it, where we weren't
Mm.
quite sure what they were going to do, and we didn't seem like they were quite sure what we were going to do. But yet, both teams should have known. It's
Yeah.
quite predictable, really. But I mean, yeah, it was a funny old game like that.
And then really nice slides that you do, the sonars, the passing sonars. Just talk to us about where the volume of passes, direction of passes for each player was.
Yeah, again, ones I've done recently. This is pretty standard for us now. You know, you're looking at sort of a hybrid back three, but you've also got Digne very high. The difference in this one for me in recent games when Watkins has played is that Watkins, you often see him sort of inside that top half of the centre circle. Now, Duran's not like that. So that points to me that he is more of a focal point. That's why he's in the side now. It's not for the Watkins runs in behind. It's more to be more of a focal point. He is a lot higher here than what Watkins is usually, dropping deep and anything else like that. But yeah, you've got a lot of passes from Carlos out to Esri Konsa, the dark blue sort of wedge there, but not so much on that left-hand side, despite the passing network telling us that we were building up more to there. So was it effective enough?
Yeah, but it didn't seem like we got in behind or got enough effective crosses. I remember maybe one or two. Obviously, John McGinn's cross for the goal was kind of on that semi on that side, but other than that, it wasn't really.
We've kind of for the last, I don't know why, but for the last sort of 6 or 7 games, even in the European games, we've fell away from what we did so well, which
Mm,
was Pau Torres straight through the middle. We talked about it so much, into Morgan Rogers on the half turn, then get those balls out wide, get out to Luca Jr. But we don't. We seem to sort of go straight out, up to Booba and then out, rather than let's progress it, put through midfield a little bit more. Maybe Boubacar Kamara being in position there is stopping a lot of that. I don't know, but we seem to have fallen away from what we started to do so well.
Yeah, they've mentioned sort of going away from not being as intense in terms of the training meetings and the relentless kind of nature of Unai Emery with wanting players to do this, this, and this, maybe not wanting to overload them, but they've talked about kind of going back to basics a bit more. So I wouldn't be surprised to see these long meetings coming back and just reinforcing some of the things that the players were doing the last 18 months that they should be going back to.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, because Kamara is now basically playing that Louise role, isn't he?
mm,
Sort of, as in possession. I mean, in the passing sort of things, and so just get Anana or Tielemans up there, or maybe play a 4-3-3 like we've talked about before, or a 4-1-4-1. So you've just got Kamara sitting there on his own, and balls are able to be played there. The trouble is that then if you play that system, you're then blocking Morgan Rogers' route centrally in the pitch, really, because you're going to play Tielemans and Anana in there. So it's got a bit of a quandary. And I think it does need to be looked at a little bit more. And I talked about on Twitter about just being that little bit more flexible for me in the way he sets the team up. But
mm,
who are we to criticise, of course? But
yeah, but teams are finding it out, and
mm,
we just need to maybe kind of mix it up a bit, or yeah, it's just one of those. I think where I think a lot of soul searching will be done. Quick look at Forest's sonars. Anything that you would notice in here about volume of passing?
we talked about their passing network. We looked at it. We said there was a lot of left-sided build-up, and this points exactly
Yeah,
to that, doesn't
yeah.
it? It's pretty obvious, but it's got to be countered like that. And I think, sort of they're trying to cluster midfield quite a bit and get players into midfield and sort of thwart Tielemans, thwart Boubacar Kamara and the like. And that's what they pretty much did. And this leaves Aina spare on the right-hand side. And I think we were quite lucky in a lot of aspects that they didn't utilise the switch quite a bit more, because he was in some very good positions, Aina.
Definitely. Looking at the shots stats and the XG. Anything to write about here?
Well, we don't like to see 17 shots from the home side, do we? We don't want to see that. We want to see more from us, but no big chances from us, and just 8 shots. And, bar the Duran goal, the header, it was kind of a bit non-plus from us from a shooting perspective.
Yeah, and that's surprising because against Leipzig, we seemed to create a lot of openings in the middle of the goal. It seemed to that we were
But
back to having some more longer range shots. And you think, again, we've talked about this so often. The likes of Yuri Tielemans is good at shooting from distance. I know Ross Barkley wasn't used much in the game. on Saturday, but he can shoot from distance. John Duran can obviously shoot from distance. Why aren't we engineering some opportunities, or at least players having a go and making the
Yeah,
keeper work?
yeah, we just seem to sort of be not sort of less reliant on Luca Digne crossing balls into the box for some reason. We seem to have stopped a lot of that. And on that shot map, we can see that Forest sort of, again, a lot of the shots from sort of that. Look at the shots from the left hand side there.
Mm.
Now we
Mm.
know we've seen sort of, this is the third viz that we've seen now that tells us there was a lot of shots coming from the left hand side and a lot of activity down that left hand side. All right, we can argue that some of them might be from corners, which they are, but there's a lot of left side activity there. Now, even at half time, the analysts would have seen this. They must have picked up on this. So why could we not have maybe looked at that and done something a little bit more with that?
Yeah. Quick look at the timeline and then the expected threat. You could see the momentum shift, I imagine, here, Gareth.
Massively, yeah. And this is, you took the words out of my mouth, and we can see, sort of they 1.78 non-penalty XG, and us just 0.42 from those 8 shots. So even from 8 shots, we're not even sort of accumulating one sort of XG. So in Duran scoring the header was a bit of a lucky break for us. But look at the momentum from 60 minutes onwards for Forest.
Yeah. Yeah, it was certainly a game where we needed more control, and we seemed to even just spoiling the game a bit, which I've talked about in my match reaction yesterday. I think just being a bit more streetwise in away games, particularly interrupt the flow, make some fouls, cynical fouls, that kind of stuff. Just we didn't seem to be able to do it. Yeah, quick look at the expected threat in terms of the timeline as well,
Yeah,
or
I
the
mean,
chart.
again,
Sorry.
yeah, I mean, again, the 60-minute marker is quite poignant, isn't it? With a big one from sort of the higher level of expected threat from Forest. And even though we created more expected threat, we didn't manage to convert any of that into high expected goals chances, let's say, or shots. So, yeah, I mean, it's a fairly even timeline, one might say, but the period from 60 minutes up until sort of the end of the game really was quite key for Forest here. And you can see that the higher expected threat towards the end, they scored the 2 goals.
Yeah. Now, big look at the goalkeeping performance. Obviously, Emi Martinez did concede 2 goals, but a lot of headlines in terms of the save that he made. People saying it's the best save ever seen. But he shouldn't be having to make saves like that, or facing shots like this, or chances like that. I think that's kind of what people are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it might have been the best save ever, but then he should have probably saved,
Should have
you
done.
know, probably not both of the goals, maybe,
Mm,
but he should have. He tried to catch the second one or the
mm,
first one, didn't he? And he sort of
yeah.
just couldn't hold on to it. So, but I mean, to sort of have to make 4 saves and then you've got a minus goals prevented there when you've only faced 0.26 on target is not a good look for Emi there.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's just take a look at the progressive passes and the progressive carries. I think actually let's do the carries first, 'cause I think a lot has been made of particularly Morgan Rogers and the amount of times he does get into these areas. And I think you talk about the expected threat because he beats 1 or 2 men, he gets into these positions, and then we seem to kind of fizzle out. And whether that's be passing the ball backwards, or whether that be just giving the ball away, or not ending up finishing in a shot.
Yeah,
Is this telling us anything about that, or
I mean,
or
it's hard to quantify a lot of it because I mean he was dispossessed twice in the game. 2 out of 6 successful dribbles completed, 7 touches in the opposition box. It's not a bad return. The dribbling sort of obviously fell off a little bit, but I think because he set such high standards early on, I think people are now noticing it a lot more that he's not completing a lot of these dribbles. So he's doing a lot of defensive work that looks good for me. On Saturday. But again, it's kind of he used to be getting bookings for making silly fouls, but yet he's not even doing that anymore. And you'd rather have that contribution than anything else. But
yeah.
yeah, offensively, he's just not quite at it, is he?
No, and I've said this a few times, and again, whether it's just an eye test thing, but where he's picking up the ball, he's then having to beat 2, 3, 4 men to then slot in 1 or 2 players. Whereas, so you think about that, doing that 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times across a game, you're probably knackered by the 3rd or 4th time that you're doing it. So it stands to reason that the pass isn't quite going to be as accurate, or you're going to be too tired to have a shot. Whereas maybe last season, he was receiving the ball maybe 30 yards further forward. He might have to beat one man, and then he was in position to shoot or play someone in. So I just feel like we always need to be 10, 15 yards further forward to then allow those attacking players to receive the ball further up the pitch.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
when Pau Torres was in the side and we were seeing him, sort of thread those balls straight through sort of 25-yard passes right into Morgan Rogers so that he could turn and run with the ball, it seems to me like he needs that little bit of space, like whether that is closer to the goal or whether it's further away to allow him to sort of do his best work and gather up a sort of a leg of speed, if you want, with the ball. But one pass in the final third, by the way, one pass.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, yeah. And it'd be interesting to see whether that is something that's carried on over the course of the next few games, or whether it's rectified. Progressive passes, again, did we seen anything from this? I mean, 62 is quite a high number
It
compared to
is.
Forest.
I mean, what we're probably looking at here again, this is now the fourth fizz we could say that we've seen the left-sided bars from Forest, and we've clearly seen it from us as well. With 47% of those progressive passes have come down that left-hand side. Is it a bit too predictable? We've spoken about that, like you said earlier. It could well be. It's what we're obviously looking to do. But again, we've spoken about it so many times. How many times are we going to say that we're doing the same thing through Luca Dina and everything else? And I get that's the way he wants to play it, and it's been effective in the past. But away from home, no, maybe not so much.
Look, I think we've kind of hammering home the same point essentially. So it was just one of them where I think game management needed to be better. We've maybe touched on the fatigue, the decision making, but I guess from your perspective, from an analyst perspective, just rounding it off, what do you think Villa need to do, or may need to maybe look at to rectify this? Is it an away from home problem? Is it a general game problem, like home or away? Like what do you think we need to kind of do?
I don't know. I mean, even though against Southampton, we could say that we won 1-0, but it wasn't convincing, was it? So we could probably count that in this cusp of games as well. I just think against Leipzig, with Matty Cash on that side, it worked really well. The patterns of play worked really well. And I think that's what they probably need to sort of look at and go affect that route a little bit more, not just through Matty Cash, but using him on that right-hand side to do other things on maybe the opposite side of the pitch. And I think Duran has to stay in the side. I think that's probably quite an effective thing. But I think Pau Torres needs to be in the side. I really do. I really think he needs to stay in the side. I'm not sure about Tyrone Mings, but Carlos could be a little bit of an issue as well. But I think we need to go back to sort of a few basics, really, and maybe just get Matty Cash maybe at right back or maybe further up the pitch, like we said. But Onana is important. I think Onana is that key to that side. Once he gains a little bit of fitness, maybe we've got more legs in midfield, and then bring Barkley on. Everything is a little bit too predictable. Even the substitutions have become predictable. So I mean, it's just a case of sort of trying to get back to where we were. But away from home, I think, is a big problem, especially in the Premier League. Away from home in the Champions League, even at home, you could say that teams don't know us that well. They're not so much. But the Premier League, have we been worked out a little bit?
Yeah, it's like almost like teams can maybe overrun us a bit or capitalize on momentum because they know Villa will give you higher quality chances that you're likely to score from, and then that momentum then carries further. And yeah, I think some of the substitutions have been a bit predictable. And Carlos in that position, yes, he defends fairly solidly, but does he give the ball away at key moments? You have to say yes. Does Pau Torres mix that well with him and that centre back partnership? I'm not so sure. Is Konsa as effective at right back, and you're taking that player out of that position, out of and being one of our probably our best centre back, to then play him as a right back where he's not as effective. So it just seems to be a bit of a knock-on effect. And Mings, for that leadership, for that voice, I feel like again away games, particularly in maybe intimidating scenarios, we just don't have enough leaders or voices or people to have a go at players or to keep them on. Like I don't, you can't guarantee this, but I could pretty much say with a lot of confidence that had we been 1-0 and we'd gone back to 1-1 and we'd have had Mings on the pitch, he would have made sure that we wouldn't have thrown away that game. just off
Yeah.
telling people what to do and where to be.
Yeah, and I think, like we've spoken about it again before, a big issue is that we've not got another right back. So we've not got the choice but to play either Cash or Conser there. And then that sort of then takes something away from a player position that could be further up the pitch, like a Leon Bailey. You know, if you've not got a sturdy enough right back, Leon Bailey becomes sort of a scapegoat almost. He cannot play because he's not going to track back as much as what he should do. So then what do you do? So that is the benefit of having Cash up top, is that he's able to get up and down the pitch and he can cover it right back when we're going to a back four, you know, out of possession. That's why he then plays, I think. So, but you've not got an alternative to that.
Yeah, well, lots of things for Unai Emery to consider, and Man City coming up on Saturday, two teams that aren't in the best of form, so one of them has got to find their way back. I mean, saying that, we've won 3 out of the last 4 games, so it'd be good to get the win and be 4 out of 5, and you would class that as being in some decent form. So look, hopefully we can get back to winning ways on Saturday, but I think it's more the performances and the kind of unconvincing nature that we want to see back. Look, Gareth, it is amazing to have you back. Thank you very much for jumping on and providing this analysis for us. And look, mate, hopefully you'll be back now as a regular, and everyone's been asking about you and all that, and you know, everyone's been supporting you, mate. So it's great to have you back on. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'll post it all on that One Villa analysis later. Yeah, it's good to be back. Let's just you know, let's do a Villa thing and Man City on Saturday. Let's go for it.
Exactly. Right, guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back. This is on Monday, so we'll be back Tuesday night for Fans Forum, where we can discuss the summer window, what to expect in the January window, because we need some reinforcements as well, and obviously get your questions and comments in, and we'll be back with previewing Man City later on this week as well. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, help us on the road to 5k. Once again, Gareth, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. And as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.